Okay, so you know those stories you see sometimes, like these big financial battles that just go on and on forever?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Well, we just saw a pretty major development in one of the longest running sagas in the crypto world, with the SEC deciding to drop its appeal against Ripple.
Wow, 4 years is a long time for this to drag on.
Right. It feels like this could really be a turning point for the company and for the whole digital asset landscape.
Absolutely feels very significant, yeah.
What are your first impressions on what this means for the average person keeping an eye on the crypto space?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that just the fact that this appeal's been dropped,
Yeah.
you know, after such a long legal battle, it signals a potential shift, maybe in how digital assets are viewed and regulated.
Right. So let's kind of break this down a bit. First, from Ripple's perspective, their CEO certainly didn't hold back in his response, right? Calling it a long overdue surrender and really emphasizing that they always believed they were in the right legally and morally. What'd you make of that reaction?
Yeah, he definitely came out strong. You can sense that deep conviction there that they were on the right side of both the law and innovation. And you know what? It reflects a concern that's been kind of simmering within the crypto community, that maybe regulation sometimes is more of a roadblock than a guidepost for progress.
It's interesting he even used the term lawfare to describe what he sees as a tactic to pressure and weaken the whole industry.
Right, and that framing is really important. It highlights the immense scrutiny and the uphill battle crypto companies face trying to operate within existing regulations. And for the average person, it underscores the fact that this relationship between innovation and regulation, it's complicated, sometimes it's downright adversarial.
And then you have the financial hit that Ripple claims to have taken. They say this whole legal fight wiped out like $15 billion in market value.
Those numbers are staggering. They
Yeah.
really drive home the tangible risks involved when you're dealing with regulatory uncertainty and these protracted legal battles. The impact on companies and the market can be huge.
He even went as far as accusing the SEC of market manipulation.
That's a serious accusation for sure. But it speaks to the deep divisions and the incredibly high stakes in this whole situation. Makes you think about the sheer power and influence that regulators wield and how their actions can shape market perceptions and valuations.
But it wasn't all bad news for Ripple, right? They did score some pretty key legal wins along the way.
Absolutely. It wasn't just about believing in their position. There were actual instances where the judicial system itself questioned the SEC's approach.
Like, what were some of the more notable wins that stand out to you?
There were times when the SEC was straight up rebuked for not adhering to legal procedures. And get this, they were even sanctioned for misconduct during the discovery process. So, these weren't just minor procedural hiccups. These were moments that really chipped away at the SEC's case and definitely added weight to Ripple's arguments.
And for anyone following along at home, that really shows how important due process and accountability are, even for powerful regulatory bodies.
You got it. Nobody's above the law.
Then, of course, we have to talk about that pivotal ruling from July 2023, where the judge ruled that XRP itself is not a security. This has been seen as a possible precedent for how other cryptocurrencies might be treated legally down the line.
Yeah, that ruling was massive. Like, defining what constitutes a security in the world of digital assets has been this ongoing headache. And this decision, it has the potential to offer some much-needed clarity for how other similar technologies might be categorized moving forward.
Do you think it'll act like a blueprint for future rulings?
I'd say it's more like a starting point. Every digital asset is unique. But this ruling establishes a crucial principle. The asset itself might not be a security, but the way it's offered or sold, that could be. And that distinction could totally reshape how future digital asset projects are structured and regulated. The entire industry has been watching this case very, very closely.
Now, even though the SEC dropped its appeal, this doesn't necessarily mean everything's completely settled, right?
Right. It's a huge hurdle cleared,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. But there are loose ends.
Like, what still needs to be worked out?
Well, that $125 million fine is still looming. And then there's the possibility of a permanent injunction on Ripple selling to institutional investors. So yeah, the legal process might not be totally over just yet.
There's been talk about several ways this could all play out. Ripple continuing their own appeal to get even more clarity on those investment contract definitions, maybe settling privately or just biting the bullet and paying the fine. What do you think's the most likely scenario?
Honestly, it's tough to say. But Ripple's legal team is even considering a cross appeal, meaning they could appeal parts of the ruling where they didn't fully win even though the SEC backed off. It's a bold move, shows they're not letting up. Each option has its pros and cons. Further appeals could bring more legal certainty. Settling or paying the fine lets them move on. It really boils down to Ripple's goals and how they weigh the risks and potential benefits of each path.
Stepping back a bit, Ripple's CEO seems to think this whole thing signals a change in the SEC's stance towards crypto, moving away from that aggressive approach we've seen in the past.
It's a hopeful interpretation. And there's evidence to support that view. The current SEC leadership has dropped cases against other big crypto players. Coinbase Consensus, OpenSea. That could point to a shift in their overall strategy, maybe towards a more pragmatic, less combative approach.
So what could this mean for the average person?
Potentially. A less volatile regulatory environment for crypto. More predictability, more stability.
He even brought up the idea that past administrations might have tried to stifle the industry's growth by limiting their access to banking.
That's a pretty serious claim. And it echoes a sentiment we hear a lot in the crypto world, that regulatory hurdles and this lack of clear guidelines have been holding back innovation and growth. The idea of deliberately restricting banking access, that really highlights the challenges crypto businesses face trying to integrate with the existing financial system. It's a powerful argument for why we need clear and consistent policies to create a space where this industry can thrive responsibly.
He seems to believe that Ripple's win here empowers the whole industry to fight for fairer regulations. He's even calling for a united front among crypto companies, learn from Ripple's experience and push for change.
It's a powerful call to action. And it makes sense. Ripple's been through this long and grueling legal battle. They've learned some hard-won lessons. Sharing that experience could help other companies navigate this tricky regulatory landscape, understand how to prepare for and respond to challenges. Ultimately, I think it could lead to a more collaborative and productive dialogue between the industry and regulators, which would be a win for everyone.
He also expressed optimism about the current administration's approach to crypto regulation.
Yeah, there's definitely a sense of cautious optimism in the air. This hope that we're moving towards a more supportive environment, one that balances consumer protection and market integrity with the need to foster innovation.
Right, because ultimately that could pave the way for wider mainstream adoption.
Exactly.
Now, let's not forget the market's reaction. We saw a pretty immediate jump in the price of XRP, right?
Makes sense. The market loves certainty. And this resolution removes a ton of uncertainty that's been hanging over XRP and Ripple. That initial price surge. It's a reflection of investor optimism. Relief that this huge illegal hurdle's been cleared shows renewed confidence in the future prospects of both.
But it seems that initial excitement cooled down a bit. Some analysts even suggested that XRP might not see a massive long-term price pump despite the positive news.
It's a good point. While this legal clarity is definitely a win, it's possible that the market had already priced in some of the potential positive outcomes during the lawsuit. And we can't forget those lingering issues, the potential limits on institutional sales. Those could be tempering expectations for any dramatic price explosions. Plus, market movements are influenced by a whole bunch of factors. It's never simple.
All right, so to sum up, this feels like a significant win for Ripple and potentially for the wider crypto world as a whole. The legal precedent set regarding XRP not being a security feels especially crucial.
Definitely. The SEC dropping its appeal is a major victory for Ripple, and it's a positive sign for the entire digital asset space. This legal clarity around XRP's classification, it's a huge step towards a clearer regulatory landscape. And that's essential if we want to see continued innovation and growth in this sector. For the everyday person, this means hopefully a more stable and predictable environment for digital assets moving forward.
It really begs the question, what's next? If some of that regulatory fog is starting to lift, what new possibilities might we see in the crypto space? What doors might open for innovation and wider adoption? It's exciting to think about the future.
I completely agree. It's going to be fascinating to see how this all plays out.
That's all the time we have for today. Be sure to join us next time as we continue to explore the latest developments in the world of digital assets.
See that?